Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well and welcome to the 5th episode of Building Accurate Habitats in Jurassic World Evolution 2. Here, we will focus on one of the best known sauropod species, the Apatosaurus. Though, it's just as likely you first heard about this Jurassic giant under another name, Brontosaurus. We'll be learning about one of the largest land animals the world has ever seen and attempt to recreate its environment in an enclosure. So let's jump right in and start getting to know this Jurassic giant. For those who would like to skip ahead, I provided some time stats for you to click. For everyone else, let's begin. With legs the width of tree trunks and feet almost as big as bicycle tires, the Apatosaurus was the elephant of the Jurassic period from about 156 to 145 million years ago. In the Jurassic period, the sauropods were the dominant dinosaurs. In any particular North American dinosaur quarry that has been found, there have been numerous species of sauropods discovered, and one of these dinosaurs is the Apatosaurus. This dinosaur was a large long-necked quadrupedal animal with a long whip-like tail. Its forelimbs were slightly shorter than its hind limbs. Individuals were about 70 to 75 feet long and weighed between 16 to 22 tons. Apatosaurus is a member of the family Lepidopteraceae, a group of enormous sauropod dinosaurs. The family includes Diplodocus, Supersaurus, and Barosaurus. In a recent 2015 study, it was discovered that the size of Apatosaurus was comparable to that of a dreadnought. Also, Apatosaurus, like its close relative the Supersaurus, had tall neural spines which made up more than half the height of the individual bones of its vertebrae. And like those other sauropods, the neck vertebrae are deeply bifurcated. They carried neural spines with extensive weight-saving air sacs. Apatosaurus had very long ribs compared to most other diplodocids, giving it an unusual deep chest. As in other diplodocids, the tail transformed into a whip-like structure towards the end. The shape of the tail is unusual for a diplodocid. It is comparatively slender because of the rapidly decreasing height of the vertebral spines with increasing distance from the hips. Trackways of sauropods like Apatosaurus show that they may have a range of 16 to 21 miles a day and could have potentially reached 12 to 19 miles per hour. The slow locomotion of sauropods is believed to be because of their minimal muscling or to recoil after strides. Remember that when these dinosaurs moved, the whole area within its vicinity shook. Their skull is small in relation to the size of the animal. Some skulls of Apatosaurus have been found still in articulation with their teeth. Those that have the enamel surface exposed do not show any scratches on the surface. Instead, they display a sugary texture and little wear. The jaws are lined with chisel-like teeth suited for a herbivorous diet. The snout of Apatosaurus and similar diplodocids is squared, with only Jurasaurus having a square skull. This was a recent discovery as paleontologists had incorrectly been using a Camarasaurus skull in an Apatosaurus body. I'll mention more about this and other mix-ups in the next section. The first Apatosaurus bones were discovered by Edward Drinker Cope in the eastern foothills of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, now known as the Morrison Foundation. While Cope was the one to discover it, the paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh was the one who gave it the name Apatosaurus. Its name means dissected lizard, and it earned that name based on its chevron bones. Chevron bones are small bones that articulate with the bottom of the tail vertebrae, as shown in this photo of a mounted skeleton of a Diplodocus. Its chevron bones were very different from other dinosaurs, and actually showed similarities with the chevron bones of Mosasaurus. While examining excavated sauropod fossils in the late 19th century, leading paleontologist Marsh used two different terms to describe what he believed were two different sauropod species. One would be the Apatosaurus, while the other one would be called Brontosaurus. Much later in 1903, American paleontologist Elmer Riggs attributed the differences between the two genera to growth and deemed Apatosaurus to be a young Brontosaurus. Since Apatosaurus had been described first, that became the species name. The change took some time to become accepted in museums and much longer in popular culture, but by the late 1990s, Apatosaurus had supplanted Brontosaurus. However, in 2015, the question was raised again when an analysis of numerous sauropod fossils claimed that the specimen that had been labeled Brontosaurus were a genus distinct from Apatosaurus. So many fossils of Apatosaurus have been discovered that many different species of Apatosaurus exist today, Apatosaurus ajax and Apatosaurus louisii being the primary species. But if there were so many fossils discovered, why was there a confusion with its skull? Like many sauropods and dinosaurs in general, Apatosaurus skulls are extremely rare. The skull bones are thin and easily crushed. Skulls are mostly hollow to hold soft tissue that cannot be preserved. Since no Apatosaurus skull had been found initially, its skull had various different designs throughout the era, based on similarities with other sauropod fossils found. The head was originally mistakenly represented in models like that of a Camarasaurus, with a square snub-nosed skull and spoon-like teeth. In 1978, however, scientists rediscovered a long-lost skull in the basement of the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. After years of research and theories, the Apatosaurus-like head that we see today is the accurate version. This was a skull that actually belonged to a Apatosaurus skeleton. It was slender and elongated and contained long peg-like teeth, like those of a diplodocid. Henceforth, Apatosaurus skull models in museums around the world were changed accordingly. Another interesting bit is that no Apatosaurus egg has ever been found in North America, a rare phenomenon that paleontologists are still trying to understand because down in South America, paleontologists have been able to discover egg fossils belonging to sauropods. One possible theory is that Apatosaurus migrated in and out of the region, and paleontologists are simply yet to find their nesting grounds. Also, the neck posture and flexibility of Apatosaurus and other sauropods is highly debated. Computer models in the 1990s suggested that Apatosaurus had little neck flexibility and probably held its head horizontally. In 2009, a study argued against this theory based on comparisons with animals alive today. Apatosaurus may have held its head held high with a swan-like S-curve to its flexible neck. However, a 2013 study in the journal PLOS ONE looked at the neck flexibility of ostriches, the closest long-necked sauropod relative, and concluded that previous neck flexibility models, which don't take into account the effect of soft tissues, cannot truly estimate the flexibility of sauropod necks. What this means for the actual posture and flexibility of Apatosaurus' neck is unclear. Given the large body mass and long neck of Apatosaurus, paleontologists have encountered problems determining how these animals breathe. A neck that long produces some rather difficult engineering problems. The trachea of an Apatosaurus is a long anatomical structure. It is assumed that a 4-chambered 500-liter heart and 900-liter lungs filled a 1700-liter thoracic cavity in Apatosaurus. These assumptions, in conjunction with reptilian resting metabolic rates and avian respiration, it has been hypothesized that an Apatosaurus required 69 gallons of water a day to live, in addition to massive amounts of vegetation that it must have consumed. Some estimates of the ability to replace this air have been done comparing Apatosaurus in ideal conditions of taxa-specific respiratory systems. Reptilian systems are vastly inadequate to replace this volume and would have suffocated Apatosaurus. Mammalian and avian systems are better equipped to replace the volumes of air proposed in Apatosaurus systems. Mammalian systems are better adequate, but underpowered as well, meaning that avian systems remain as the best equipped systems for allowing Apatosaurus to breathe efficiently. A 2015 study of the necks of Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus found many differences between them and other diplodocids. These variations showed that the neck of Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus were used for combat between its own species. It had been proposed that the tails of Apatosaurus could have been used in combat and defense, and were capable of producing a whip-like cracking sound of over 200 decibels, comparable to the sound of a cannon being fired. But recent studies have shown that the tails of Apatosaurus were quite light and narrow, and thus to injure another animal with the tail would severely injure the tail itself. Additionally, Apatosaurus and some other sauropods had large claws on their hand. Although some have suggested that they were for self-defense, it is much more likely that these dinosaurs used their claws to help grasp trees, to reach high up foliage, or to dig scrapes in the ground to make nests and search for water. Now that we have some knowledge on Apatosaurus, let's talk about the environment that it lived in, to give us a better idea of what its enclosure would look like. Apatosaurus, and sauropods for that matter, were very important to the ecosystem. They shaped the landscape around them. Vast areas of prairie and open forests were kept that way because sauropods flattened so many trees in search for food. It was believed throughout the 19th and 20th century that sauropods like Apatosaurus were too massive to support their own weight on dry land. Paleontologists theorized that they lived partly submerged in water, perhaps in swamps, though recent findings no longer support this, as sauropods are now thought to have been fully terrestrial animals. Apatosaurus was the second most common sauropod in the Morrison Foundation ecosystem after Camarasaurus. The Morrison Foundation consisted of a semi-arid environment with different wet and dry seasons. It contained river-lining forests of tree ferns with fern understories as well as fern savannas with occasional trees. Apatosaurus resided in natural forested floodplains in densely vegetated form, swamps, seasides, wooded area segments, and lakes. They had a varied diet of cycads, seed ferns, horsetails, and algae. A study of its mouth showed that the square snout, large proportion of pits, and fine scratches of teeth of Apatosaurus suggest it was a ground-height non-selective browser. Sweeping its neck in an arch from side to side, it scoured the ground like a giant vacuum cleaner. It is believed that Apatosaurus primarily fed on low-lying plants, but its long neck may have been enabled this sauropod to eat soft leaves on higher trees, if its neck was flexible enough. Like the big herbivores of today, Apatosaurus probably relied on gut microbes to help them digest plant matter, resulting in the production of the greenhouse gas methane. Cows are the current day sauropods in terms of methane release, and it's not due to their size, but due to the large amount of livestock that is currently in the world. In a 2012 study in the current Biology journal, researchers calculated that Apatosaurus and other sauropods produce about 520 million tons of methane per year, which is not so different from the amount of methane currently produced by both natural and man-made sources. That's a lot of gas. They produce enough methane to have a minor but measurable effect on the global climate, said study lead researcher David Wilkinson, a biologist at Liverpool John Moores University in the United Kingdom. In theory, they could have produced enough methane to play a role in sustaining the warm climate of the Mesozoic era. Again, that's a lot of gas. Okay, so based on that info that we received, let's go ahead and start building our enclosure. I'm going to do 3 parts to this habitat. One part's going to be the river lining forest of densely vegetated ferns. And then here in the middle, I'm going to transition to that fern savanna that we read about. And then over here, I think we're going to go ahead and add a nice wooded area segment to finish it off. Have nice little tree transitions. So it gives us a nice little representation of this guy's environment. So like always, I like to use the tram lines for my river. And we'll just make this river a bit skinny. Add a second route. Make it look more natural and kind of give it a bit little inland sea, if you will. Make it a bit more skinny. Made it too skinny. And I think it looks good. Looks nice and unnatural. We're gonna keep this the way it is, nice and green. But for the savanna transition, we're gonna go ahead and use this type of grass. Well, that's gonna stay the same. But right here is when we start doing the transition. And to make this transition a bit better, we're gonna use dirt in between here. And one thing I almost forgot is always put rock where you put your bodies of water. Nice little tip I read from Reddit, and it allows the water to give it a bit more depth. And if you want, you put that some sand here on the sides for the embankments. And since we're going to go ahead and use this part for the wooded as well. Just that this part is gonna have a bit more dirt since it's like the savanna. Put some sand there as well. Give it a nice blend between both. I think I added a bit more, just too much sand, so I'm gonna go back to the grass. Gonna go like this. Give it a nice blend. It's all up to you. Now we're gonna go with our. Let's go with rocks. Put some rocks all around our rivers. It's mostly where they tend to be, and that's mostly where I kind of want to put them. That's mostly where I group them. I group them near bodies of water, but all optional. We'll add one big rock formation here. And then another one on this side. Looks like that Apatosaurus is blocking that car's way, but it's fine. And I think we're good here. We'll add another one over here, like I said. All up to what you want, but I feel like this part is missing some rocks over here. Probably won't be able to see them, but it's good to have. Little details count. Speaking of details, one of the things we're going to do now is with our foliage. So we know we need some cycads. Let's go with that one first. Not too much. Mostly keeping it between the body of water. Like so, not too much. Seed ferns. I want to use a lot of those, so we'll put some of these here. Our seed plants. And they're gonna be our little transition between the savanna and the tropical. Right here we got a river running forest. I'm gonna use this type of forest here. That's good. But we're gonna switch to over here. Can we? Well, we'll be good. Actually, let's use our calamites, which are gonna be our what are calamites gonna be? They're gonna be our ferns and our horsetails. Go ahead and put these here. And actually, we'll replace a bit of the forest with it. Oh, we got a low health somewhere. Oh, this guy's hungry. It's mostly what it is. So let's make sure we got the food down. We got his food down. And over here, since we got fern savannas, let's use the fibrous ground cover to give us that sort of fern savanna look. And actually, let's go ahead and do leafy climbers. You know why? Because leafy climbers have those little broken pieces of logs that can represent, you know, sauropods having walked through the area. Especially since we're going to be adding a couple of sauropods here. Since the era that Apatosaurus lived in, there were a lot of sauropods. Speaking of sauropods, since they shaped the land around them, we'll go ahead and put these trees around to make it seem like the middle was the one that was traversed by the giant sauropods. And then we're going to blend it with some calamites, I mentioned. Got a good blend of both of these. So I think that's good. And to give an impression that, you know, the sauropods are walking around and they're, you know, laying tracks, let's cut some trees away. So like that. Try to think of like high traffic areas like so, like that. And then what you want to do, those areas in which we took foliage away, place it with the dirt. Nice little trick I learned on Reddit. And it's just gonna make it seem like the sauropods have been traversing through here, and these are like the high trafficked areas. And so, you know, they get rid of the plants and they kick up the grass, eventually turning to dirt, which is what I'm doing right now. And it gives it a bit more natural look. And there you have it, guys. I think we're done. What do you guys think? I think it looks pretty good. This guy's about to go eat, hopefully. His comfort's high. It's getting there, but it looks like they're happy. And I think it's a good representation of their habitat. We have a good amount of tropical. We got our fern savannas. And lastly, we got our woodlands. And as you can see, they're starting to eat. And it looks like they're enjoying their new habitat. So I think we did well here, lads. If you want to make your Apatosaurus feel more at home, you can also add some dinosaurs that they coexisted with. As mentioned earlier, sauropods were the dominant dinosaurs during Jurassic period. Apatosaurus lived amongst other sauropods such as the Camarasaurus, Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, and Brontosaurus. It also lived alongside other dinosaurs like the four-legged armored Stegosaurus, the small but swift ornithopod Dryosaurus, and the plant-eating beaked ornithischian Camptosaurus. While there is no Camptosaurus in the game, one can replace it with an Edmontosaurus, a very similar dinosaur. While a healthy adult has no enemies due to its size, young, juvenile, sick, and old Apatosaurus might have been preyed upon by theropods like the Allosaurus, who was the dominant carnivore of the era, or the horned Ceratosaurus, or the Megalosaurus. Tiny ornitholistes also roamed during this time and might have scavenged on the remains of Apatosaurus. You might have to play around with your dinosaur synthesizing and sandbox options to help with the dinosaur compatibility that one will get when mixing with one or more sauropods in an enclosure. Apatosaurus made its first appearance in Microcrine's novel Jurassic Park as the very first dinosaur the endorsement team sees in the book. In the second novel, The Lost World, Apatosaurus is found living in Isla Nublar along with herds of Parasaurolophus. According to information from the Dinosaur Protection Group, Apatosaurus was originally planned to be an attraction for Jurassic Park on Isla Nublar. Over 50% of its genome was already completed by 1993. Sadly, this was put on hold after the disastrous Isla Nublar incident. It was also considered to be shown in Jurassic Park The Lost World, but never did. It wouldn't appear on the big screen until the 2015 release of Jurassic World. It played a pivotal role in Jurassic World for Claire, one of the major characters in the movie. After the Indominus Rex rampages on a herd of Apatosaurus, Claire is able to have a touching experience with a dying Apatosaurus, which changes her entire outlook on dinosaurs, no longer seeing them as numbers on a spreadsheet. Apatosaurus is also seen in the sequel Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, where it is shown during the eruption of Mount Sibo, plunging to their deaths trying to escape the pyroclastic flow. And while making this video, the new trailer for Jurassic World Dominion released, and in it, we get to see a shot of an adult Apatosaurus, confirming its role in the new film. It's made appearances in video games such as Jurassic World Alive, the Jurassic World Lego game, and Jurassic World Evolution. It also appears as one of the dinosaurs that you can interact with in Jurassic Park's first VR experience. In other media, it is rumored that Dino from the Flintstones is a type of Brontosaurus, and they are seen throughout the series as being as one of the more important creatures in caveman society, as they were essential for cities around the world, both for their use in construction and as a primary staple food source for caveman society. Don't you remember the Bronto burger, steaks, and ribs? In the Disney franchise, a young Apatosaurus named Arlo is the film's main protagonist. Apatosaurus has also made an appearance in the famous BBC series Walking with Dinosaurs. This slow but enormous sauropod is a beautiful but deadly addition to your Jurassic Park. Thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.